pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today with the message, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly, Reverend Stephen McAfee.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for that music. Oh my goodness. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, so in 10 days, Christmas will be here. And so I've been thinking a lot about that, as you probably all have. And this verse came to mind. And I thought about how much of the teachings of Jesus over the course of my life that I've been exposed to, which has been, in my early life, mostly traditional messages, focus on the idea of what happens after you die, instead of on what happens while you're alive. And I think this verse doesn't have anything to do with what happens after you die. I think it has to do with how you live. So I thought about that, and I thought about one of the other things that we associate with Jesus a lot. Besides, I mean, for me, I think about love when I think of it. That's my first thing. But what we talk about a lot and try to understand a lot are the miracle stories. He healed the blind, he healed the deaf, he raised the dead, he did all these amazing things. And then here in Unity, we talk about the fact that this Christ light that was in him that enabled him to do all that, that's in us too. So we have those same kind of abilities and same kind of powers. And yet I think it's safe to say most of us probably haven't raised anybody from the dead, physically. But I bet there are some of you who've raised people from the dead spiritually. And I bet some of you have been raised from the dead spiritually. Yeah? So I thought about, there's one miracle that for sure I'm positive is true, and that is that a little baby was born to an obscure and unimportant Jewish couple in a really tiny village in an age of the world where there was no mass communication, no social media, no press agents, no news media, and the majority of the population were illiterate. And that baby, we now measure time from before he was born and after he was born. And over 2,000 years later, we're still talking about him. How did that happen? You don't think that's miraculous? I was born. See me on the news lately? People telling stories about me? And if they do, don't listen. So I think there's truth to the fact that well, I know there is, that this same Spirit is in us, and so these amazing things can happen within us and through us and by us and for us and all of that. And they're amazing. Times that you've been healed, times you've helped other people heal, times that you've helped people awaken. All these amazing things we talk about all the time here at Unity. Those are amazing. And I'm grateful for all of those. But there's a miracle that we have the power in us to perform that I think transcends all of those. And I think it's way more important than all of those. And that is the miracle to see the gift of what is right now, just as it is, not changing anything, but seeing the sunrise is a miracle, and it happens every day. Seeing a sunset is a miracle. Being able to take breath into your lungs, because if you've ever not been able to, it's a miracle to be able to breathe. As Lynn said a moment ago, it's a miracle to be alive, isn't it? And there's another miracle beyond your being alive and my being alive, that life exists at all. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but it didn't need to be here. Why is it even here at all? The fact that life exists is a gift. That's a miracle. And then the fact that we get to participate in it. And not only participate in it, but participated in it at a level at which we're aware of it. You know, there was a squirrel playing in my yard this morning, and while he was looking for nuts that he buried and he can't remember where he put them, I can relate to squirrels. You ever put something in a safe place where you'll be sure to remember where it is? I'm thinking this squirrel is, appreciating the nut and hoping he finds where he put it. But the squirrel, as far as we know at least, doesn't have any bigger picture than that. He doesn't appreciate that he's alive. He doesn't appreciate that nuts exist and he can find them and they sustain him. He doesn't appreciate that my dog is not out there chasing him out of the yard. We get to, our capacity for awareness is miraculous. Don't you think? Height and depth. We can experience some of the lowest lows in creation and be aware of them. Really the pit of despair. I know we don't talk about that here, but some of you have been there. We can experience that. We can experience the heights of heaven. One little being can experience all of that. That's miraculous. That's astonishing to me. You know what another miracle we have is? That we can love and be loved. That's astonishing. The miracle of friendship is astonishing. I grew up with a family that actually loved each other. I grew up with friends. I grew up being loved. I grew up having people I loved. I thought that was normal and everybody had it, and I'm sorry to tell you, but it isn't. And not everybody does. So that's a miracle to have those things. And how many times, have you ever, I'll relate this to this in just a second, this is going to seem off the wall, but have you ever driven someplace and been so caught up in a conversation you're having with somebody in your car, or just so caught up in your own thoughts that you don't know how you got there? You don't actually remember the roads you took, or how many stoplights you're in. You don't remember any of that. How'd you get there? I don't know. But there you are, you got there. Because we are going through our life half asleep most of the time. We are not paying attention right now, as Lynn said, to this moment. Right now, sitting out there, right now are all these children of God. Right now the Spirit of Christ is here. Right now, not in the future, not at Christmas, not in the past, right now. The Spirit that was in Jesus is right here. And it's not just floating in the air somewhere. It's in you. Right now. And it's accessible to you right now. Not when you get good enough. Not when you awaken enough. Not when you become learned enough. Not when you get wise enough. Not when you stop screwing up everything. Not when you stop doing all the dumb little things that you do to yourself and everybody else. Right now. You don't think that's a miracle? I think it's a miracle. And I think being aware of it is the most important power that we have. Because if we're not aware of our power to love, we will not choose to love. If we're not aware of our power to forgive, we won't forgive. If we're not aware of our power of being forgiven, we won't receive forgiveness, even if it's offered. If we're not aware of grace and mercy, even if it's delivered, and this nice little mercy gift shows up on your lap in a beautiful Christmas package with a lovely bow, and it has your name on it, to you, from the divine. And it's full of mercy and grace and all these amazing things that you would like to experience in your life, this sense of peace, this sense of joy, the things the kids just sang about. All of that stuff that we'd like to experience, it's all in that package, and it's laid in your lap, but you won't open it. Then you don't get to have it. But it's not because it isn't given. So I think that's a miracle. And I think that being present to everyday miracles is important. Jesus said something else that we don't talk about much because it's troublesome philosophically in Christianity. He said, all these things that I've shared with you and all these things I've told you, including all the prophecies, They're all going to come to pass in this generation. This generation. Over 2,000 years ago. Did they? Historically? No. Was there an end to death in the world? No. Was there an end to war in the world? No. Were the Romans overthrown and the state of Israel reestablished? No. Did all of those things happen? No. In his generation, the people that took his words to heart, were they able to live life and live it abundantly? Yes. Did that happen for his apostles? Yes. Did it happen for people who loved him and began to live what he taught? Yes. Don't wait to say yes. Don't wait to see the miracle that is your life right now. You know, we have a lot of stories about creation, how God created things, and we try to understand that. Did he really make it in 6 days? Or was that like 1,000 years? Was it like really 6,000 years? You know, how did he really make it? How did that really happen? And we have arguments about that. Is there really a creator? Was it intelligent design? Was it random? How does all this happen? And we argue about creation. This creation story that we've argued about for 6,000 years now, the fact that God created this world. You know what else God is doing? Creating your life today. Right now. The same God. And we miss it. It's astonishing. I mean, what you have right this moment is astonishing. You know something else Jesus said to his apostles? All the prophets that have ever been have longed to see what you see, and they didn't. They have longed to hear what you've heard, and they haven't. That message is still true for us. We have the teaching. We have the Spirit. Are we seeing it? Are we hearing it? Are we doing it? Because the real gift of Christmas is not the history of some man that was born over 2,000 years ago, and not the fact that the Spirit of Christ was in him, which also was a miracle, but it was to show us that that light, that Spirit, is born in you and in me and in every child born. Every child born. Not white ones, not black ones, not yellow ones, not purple ones, not polka dot ones, not old ones, not young ones, not Martians, not Saturnians, not earthlings. Every soul born. That Spirit is born into. That's astonishing. There's a story in Judaism about a rabbi, and when he would lead the service, in this one particular service, they have Genesis as part of their service, the first chapter of Genesis, and it begins, and God said. And when this rabbi would try to do that particular service every year, when that time rolled around, he would say, and God said, and start to quote that passage from Genesis, and just start weeping uncontrollably. He couldn't get any farther than that. And somebody asked him about it one time, and he said, don't you understand? God spoke to us. Don't you get it? And he was so overwhelmed by that, he couldn't continue the service. God's speaking to us right now. So, I wanted to, in light of this being alive to the present moment. Now, mind you, the present moment, at least mine, sometimes my present moment is absolutely normal. Nothing's happening. I'm just, I wake up, there's a day, nothing special happens good, nothing special happens bad, it's just a day. And I think, a normal day. I don't think that anymore. But I used to think that. Or something really that I don't like at all happens. And I'm thinking, I can't wait till this day is over. I know, I'm not supposed to think that way. But I do sometimes. I can't wait till this is over because I don't like it. And sometimes it's wonderful, and I think, oh my God, this is great. I hope this never ends. Ever had either one of those feelings? Yeah, we do. Sometimes we miss the miracle of just being alive. Whether the moment is something that we are enjoying or not enjoying, the fact that we're aware of it and living it is miraculous. So I want to tell you a true story, and I'm going to read a little bit of it. It's from a columnist that I read a lot. His name is Sean Dietrich, and some of you may have heard of him, some of you may not. But this is a true story about a 14-year-old girl that he was friends with. He's a writer in Alabama, middle-aged guy, musician, interesting guy. Very simple person. This is part of a true story, and it will tie into what I'm talking about. So this is him. I believe in prayer, and I believe in miracles, not only because I choose to, but because I'm so simple-minded that I believe the things I've seen, and I've seen miracles. I've seen them firsthand. I know what happens when groups of people align their intentions and pray. Things happen. I've seen children with pediatric cancer come back from the edge of death. I've seen grown men dying of kidney disease unexpectedly recover. I've seen people come out of comas doctors said they would never awaken from. I have watched doctors scratch their head when a 10-year-old boy with terminal brain cancer suddenly one morning had no tumors. My friend Morgan needs your prayer. She's a beautiful young woman who has spent most of this year in the hospital. She's a sophomore in college now. Her hair is Scott red. Her accent is definitely Alabama. And her eyes are bright. She used to be very healthy. Her face was full and animated and her smile vibrant. Her personality cheerful and meek. Loud people who need to be the center of attention usually overlooked Morgan because she's very quiet and she's content not to be in the stage light. But at the same time, everyone I know is drawn to her, and they don't know why. After months of living on a feeding tube, after months of living in a mechanical hospital bed, her muscles have mostly atrophied, her body is beginning to shut down, and she can no longer walk. She spends over 90% of her day sleeping. And what kills me is how fast it happened. Just a couple of months ago, Morgan and I were hiking through the mountains here together on a bright, clear day, marching through the woods. Morgan with her big backpack and me with barely nothing, wheezing. We stopped for a break so this middle-aged dork could catch his breath for a moment and sat on a natural bench made of stone. I could see her feeding tube poking out from beneath her shirt tail. While we were silent, there was nothing but trees and their birds for our accompaniment. And as she stared off into the mountains, she said to me, "People just don't know." "What don't we know?" I asked her. "They don't know what they have. This world, this life, it is so wonderful. It's so beautiful." So I just looked at her, and she said, "You know, being on life support changes you. Do you know what you think about most often when you're sure you're going to die?" I still said nothing. "You wish," she said to me, "that you wouldn't have turned down so many opportunities to be alive." So the last line of that story is, Morgan just texted me a picture of herself in the hospital. Her eyes are still as bright and clear as I have ever seen them, whereas mine are full of tears. Please pray for Morgan. So, interestingly enough, whether she survives this treatment or whether she doesn't, Morgan, I wish I could show you. I should have thought to try to get the picture to show you. An extraordinarily happy-looking young woman, just radiant. She now has people from the internet all over the world praying for her. They're having parties in the hospitals. She's visiting other terminal kids in the hospital. She is bringing this gift of happiness as she's dying to people all over. She's not taking this moment for granted. She's not taking the next one for granted, or that she'll even have a next one for granted. And while she's actively dying, she is fully alive. I'm not actively dying. And I'm half asleep most of the time. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to miss my life. I don't want to miss knowing you. I don't want to miss time to play with my dog. I don't want to miss showing up at Unity, even though I always can't do it, but I don't want to miss it. I don't want to miss this. So if we are trying to learn and live the teachings of Jesus, because Unity is built on those teachings and sees him as a way shower, if we're doing that, then it seems to me that taking this seriously about living abundantly requires us to live with awareness. And it requires us to see the miracle of life and to appreciate that gift and to use it well while it's ours. Not to have passed and then said, I didn't really do anything with that. Do something with it. Live it. This Christmas season, my suggestion is, to myself and to you, is that we look at spending less time being upset about things that aren't the way we want, less time criticizing other people for not being the way we want, less time complaining about what we wish we had and don't, instead of being grateful for what we do have, less time being so self-obsessed that I can't see your pain, only mine, less time feeling the lack when there is abundance everywhere. And you have the opportunity to take it up and open the gift. And the opportunity is right now. We can all do that. I can do that, and you can do that. This I'm going to say before the little meditation. This is a quote from Romans 13:11, and it says, "Do you not know that this is the time? And this is the hour for you to awaken from your sleep." Our salvation is so much nearer than we first understood and believed. Isn't that true? So let's just close our eyes for a moment. And just take this in. That you have the breath of life in your body and the Spirit of God in your heart. That you have sitting to your left and to your right now, other living souls who hold that same Spirit. You have those behind you and those in front of you who hold that same Spirit. You have in this whole chapel the same thing, surrounded by souls who are the living flames of that one eternal light. And you have with every moment the ability to be aware of it, to appreciate it, to open to it, to let it move through you, in you. The Spirit of Christ that indwells us was never meant to be secluded away in us. It is in us to come forth. It is in us to be revealed. It is in us to be shared. Take the bushel off your light and let the world see the light you are, just as Jesus did. And if you never heal anyone who's deaf or blind or mute, if you never do anything that anyone thinks is miraculous, but you live grateful to be alive and willing to love, you have performed the greatest miracle of the ages. Stay awake. Let's just take a moment of silence to take this in. We are more precious to the divine than we can ever understand. And we are more precious to one another than you would know from watching how we behave. Love those who are in your life while they're here, and let them love you. May that be our gift this Christmas. Amen. Thank you.